So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to literally love studying any single subject, any subject at all, because I promise it is possible. Because I went from first year IGCSE, literally hating every single subject I was doing, to second year IGCSE, literally loving studying so much that I would read the physics textbook in bed before I slept. And I learned to love literally any subject because in university, I did a pretty broad degree. So I did an engineering degree, but I also studied computer science subjects, law subjects, linguistic subjects, all these subjects, and I learned to love them all. Because that's what I want to teach you in this video. Basically, the concept I want to teach you is that our brain actually by default loves learning. It loves studying, it loves learning anything. Because imagine when you were a kid. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I literally asked a million questions. I would literally ask my dad, like, what's the color of the sky? You know, why is this beetle moving like this? Why is this like this? Why is this like this? I was curious. I was keen to do anything. But the problem is, as we grow up, because of the education system, because of society, a lot of resistance gets put onto us. We get traumatized, events happen, and we end up hating studying. And the sad thing is, most students, they leave the education system and they stop learning. They vow to never learn again. And their life quality just gets worse and worse and worse. So most students, they hate the university experience. They leave all their studying to the last minute. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to actually drop that resistance and unlock the natural motivation, the natural enjoyment of studying that's in your mind so that you can effortlessly study all day long. I'm not even kidding, because I loved studying, like I said, and I can get you to that point, get you to the point where you can literally love studying any subject. So first link below, my inner circle community, if you want me to help you personally find what's making you stuck in your studying process and help you get to the point where you're effortlessly studying. But join below if you're interested. All right, so the first thing I want to explain to you is that there's actually two kinds of enjoyment. So there's this kind of enjoyment I'm talking about here, but there's another kind of enjoyment, which is not the enjoyment we're talking about here. The other kind of enjoyment I'm going to call pleasure, stimulation. So for example, when you play video games, when you do drugs, when you eat very, very tasty food, you experience this high, this really, really good feeling. And that is not the type of enjoyment I'm talking about, because that kind of enjoyment actually comes at a cost. When you do drugs, when you play video games and you're addicted, when you scroll on social media, it comes at a cost. And I'm not talking about the cost to your health. I'm not talking about the cost to your time. I'm talking about the cost of craving. So for example, I used to be very, very addicted to video games. Literally, I have thousands of hours in multiple video games. In Minecraft, I think I have thousands of hours in. Counter-Strike, I had thousands of hours. All these games, right? Battlefield, Skyrim. And it's pretty innocent. I enjoyed it. It was exciting. But when I wasn't playing video games, I was constantly in pain. When I was in school, all I could think about was playing video games when I got home. So drugs, TikTok, all these things, the problem is when you stop doing them, you start to crave them. And craving is a very, very painful experience. So these pleasureful experiences come at a cost. That's the first thing. The second thing is the pleasure you get from these things goes down over time. Like when I first started playing video games, it was the most exciting thing in the world. It was like I was exploring this brand new world. Everything was so interesting. But after a couple years of playing video games, I got to the point where literally every game seemed boring to me. So maybe you've gotten to the point where when you scroll on TikTok, you're not even enjoying it anymore. It's just gotten so monotonous, so boring to you. So this is actually a fake kind of enjoyment that comes at the cost of craving. If you want to know the science behind it, your dopamine goes up and then it comes crashing down and it brings your baseline down. So it actually makes your life worse in the long run. That's the first kind of enjoyment we're going to call stimulation enjoyment. Now, the other kind of enjoyment that I want to talk about here is a more sort of peaceful, joyous kind of enjoyment. I don't know how to explain it. This is the kind of enjoyment when you're kind of like in a flow state, you're enjoying it. Basically, I would call that enjoyment basically the result of getting rid of the resistance you have to studying. So you have a lot of hate, a lot of negativity towards studying. When you get rid of that, what remains is this natural enjoyment of studying. And how do we know this natural enjoyment of studying is not the pleasure kind of studying? Basically, you can ask yourself this question. All right, so the simple way to explain it is, what would happen if you couldn't do that thing? So if somebody back then told me, hey, your computer's broken, you can't play Minecraft anymore, I would literally be like itching like a crackhead. I would be like feeling so bad, like why am I missing out on this game? But if one day someone told me, hey, this subject is done, you don't need to study anymore, I would be indifferent. I wouldn't care. So I enjoy it, but I don't feel bad when it's gone. So it's this kind of pure form of enjoyment. It's an enjoyment where there's no negativity in your mind. For example, I love to write YouTube videos, right? I love to write and make YouTube videos. It's a lot of fun. But if you told me, hey man, you're not going to write videos this month, I would be indifferent. I would be like, okay, no problem. And so that's the kind of enjoyment that I want to get you to. But okay, like I said, we encounter resistance. That's why we don't enjoy it. I'll explain through some examples. I'll explain through my example of YouTube. So right now, I really enjoy making YouTube videos. I literally sit down, I enjoy it, I like making videos, but I also don't mind taking a break. But it wasn't always the case. Basically, by the way, this kind of enjoyment is like sort of a pure, it's called flow state. When you enter this flow state, there's no thoughts in your mind. You're just very, very, present with the activity. It's enjoyment. Psychology has proven that this is when we are happiest. So pay attention. So like I said, this was not always the case for me when it came to making YouTube videos. When I first started my YouTube channel, I didn't post for a year. I had the ambition of starting my YouTube channel in 2022, but I didn't start till 2023. Because basically, every single night I would plan my next day and I would be like, okay, I'm going to sit down from 2 to 3 and I'm going to write a YouTube video and I'm going to post it. But the next day I would get lazy, I would distract myself, I would go on my phone. And this process would repeat day after day after day. I thought I was lazy. I thought I needed more discipline. I was like learning how to be more disciplined, how to focus better. Because every time I would sit down to write a video, I would literally freeze. But what I realized was I wasn't lazy. I didn't have a discipline problem. I was scared. I was experiencing this resistance. Basically, I had deep down a fear. I had a fear that if I posted these videos, my friends and my family were going to see my videos and they were going to laugh at me. They were going to, think it was awkward. They were going to think it's funny. Or even worse, I would post for like 50 videos and I would get no followers and everyone would see I'm such a failure. So the reason I had this resistance to studying is because in my mind, basically, I had this image that I wanted people to see me as. Somebody who was successful, somebody who was, confident or whatever, somebody who had good ideas. And making these videos would shatter this image of me in their minds. So basically the reason I didn't want to write videos was because my mind was scared that my ego would break. That's basically it. So the reason my mind, my nervous system was resisting me from making videos was because my ego was at risk. So this is nothing to do with laziness. This is nothing to do with needing to enjoy studying. It's simply a self-esteem problem. And so 2 years ago, I started helping students study. I started helping them get better at their studies, improve their productivity. And initially I started helping students with like time management and study techniques and diet and all these things. And it helped kind of on the surface level sometimes when I was helping them. But what I realized was at the deeper level, pretty much every single student I was helping was encountering this kind of resistance in some kind of way. They had some kind of self-esteem, unmet thing where basically the simple way to put it is their nervous system was perceiving study as a threat. They were going into survival mode, what's called fight, flight, or freeze mode. When you sit down to study and you feel like running away, you feel like freezing, or you feel like pushing through with force, it's because your body is perceiving it as a danger and it's going into survival mode. That's why you hate studying, because your brain, your body doesn't care about enjoying studying. It cares about keeping you safe. Specifically, it cares about keeping your identity safe, keeping your ego safe. So if your ego is at threat, for example, you're scared of failing again like last time and your parents are gonna, get mad at you, your friends are gonna see that you're a failure. If your ego is under threat because of past failures, because you're comparing yourself, because of whatever, then your body's gonna put up this resistance to studying and you're gonna feel this stress response. That's why you hate studying. That's why studying is so painful. So none of that study advice works for you because you've got this resistance that you're feeling. So if you resonate with any of those fight, flight, or freeze modes, you're definitely in this situation. So I realized that most students were facing this and it was massive. Like for example, there was this one student last year, Her name's Pehel. Basically, she wanted to study for 8 to 12 hours a day. But whenever she would sit down to study, she would literally freeze. She knew all the study techniques, she knew everything, but she couldn't focus at all. And we helped her in our community, and we found out that the reason she couldn't study was because basically she used to do really, really well when she was younger. She got really good grades and everything. But because of her life now had changed and everything, she wasn't doing as well. So she was trying to maintain that old image of herself in her parents' mind. And because she couldn't really keep up with that, she was experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of resistance to sitting down and studying. And that's why she couldn't focus. But when she worked on that fear, when she retrained her nervous system, she could effortlessly study 8 to 12 hours a day and actually enjoy it. So don't take my word for it. Many, many students have encountered this where they're all in survival mode, basically. Most students these days are in survival mode. That's why they hate studying. That's why they leave studying to the last minute. So like I said, your nervous system is designed to protect you, protect your identity. Take the example of somebody insulting you. Maybe when somebody insults you, you feel so bad. You feel like so tight in your chest. You feel like maybe angry or something. This is because your nervous system is bracing to protect you. It sees, oh no, this guy has threatened my identity. We're under danger. Even though, all the guy did was just say some words to you, because your nervous system is designed to protect you. So let's say, for example, I was, a lot of kids used to bully me when I was a kid. So I grew up in high school and university being very afraid to talk. I had a lot of struggles socializing because my nervous system detected that people are a threat, because that's the experience I had when I was younger. So those experiences when I was younger left an impression on my nervous system. So whenever I would go to a party, for example, my nervous system would flag it as a threat and it would go into survival mode, into stress response. That's why I didn't enjoy talking to people. That's why I preferred to stay at home at night, because it wasn't because I hated socializing. It was because socializing would put up my survival response and it would feel painful to do. So when I started working on that survival response, socializing became more enjoyable. Not because it was like that pleasure of video games or something, but simply because I was removing the hate, because I was removing the resistance. When you remove the resistance from studying, it naturally becomes enjoyable. It becomes fun. Because think about it like this. Which part of the studying process is actually unenjoyable? Okay, step 1, sitting down on your desk. Okay, that's pretty chill. Step 2, opening your document. Okay, that's pretty chill. Step 3, writing your first sentence. Okay, that's pretty chill. Doing your entire assignment is broken up into these tiny micro steps. And no individual step is painful. The problem is, in every single step, we encounter resistance. So we're going to write the first sentence of our paper. Our mind projects into 2 places, the past and the future. So the past, oh, I failed all these assignments last time. I let my parents down last time. This is going to happen again. And the future, oh, I'm going to fail again. I'm so far behind. How does Joe study this subject so easily? How does he understand all the material in class? Is there something wrong with me? Am I dumb? So because of our mind going into the past and the future, this is why we don't enjoy studying. It's because, like I said, our nervous system is under this threat. Our body, our mind is simply resisting the present moment. That's why we can't get into flow state. Flow state is when you are fully immersed in the present moment and you're focused on what you're doing. Like I said, flow state is pure enjoyment. But how can you access this flow state if your mind is projecting into the future, worrying about things, or projecting into the past, regretting your past mistakes? So here's a tip I can give you to help you understand how this works. Basically, what you can do is you can understand that this is just a signal. Your nervous system is just giving you a signal that it's under danger. You can consider it a false alarm. It's like your alarm going off and it's a false alarm. It's not actually real. You don't actually have to listen to it. The problem is when our survival mechanism tells us to run away or tells us we're a failure, we listen to it. But if you can gain that awareness and realize that this is not real, you're just entering this survival mode, your brain is just trying to protect you, you can disconnect from your thoughts and you can stay focused on your work. So there's this analogy that Tushar likes to give in our community, in our inner circle community. He talks about how thoughts and are kind of like clouds. Thoughts and emotions are kind of like clouds in the sky. they kind of pass and they go away. They pass, they go away. For example, I'm a failure. I failed last time. I'm going to fail this time. And if you simply see those thoughts as clouds passing in the sky and you don't give them any importance, they just pass away. So the thing is, you can still work, you can still study with these clouds going on in your head. You can still study with these thoughts playing on your head. The only thing is, you don't give them any importance. Let me give you an example. So yesterday I woke up and I felt a little bit more stressed than usual. So I had to go make some content for my online community. Below I had some nice stuff that I was going to make, but I was feeling a lot of resistance to it. My mind was thinking like, oh man, you're going to let these people down. Everything you write sucks. Nobody actually likes it. You're not helping anybody. You have zero ideas. I was getting all these negative thoughts in my mind. But I understood perfectly that this is just my body responding, thinking it's a threat. Basically, I've always had this habit of overthinking. And maybe I was just getting another wave of overthinking hitting me. So I understood, okay, these thoughts are like clouds. They say nothing about reality. They're just my body trying to give me a signal to make me run away. I don't have to give it any importance. And by the way, whenever there's some kind of negativity in your mind, it also manifests in your body. So I was getting this negativity in my mind and I was feeling such tightness in my chest and my throat and my stomach area. I was feeling so uncomfortable. But I understood this is just a signal. It's not real. It's not reality. It's just my body's old habit of overthinking, trying to protect me. And I understood that. I still went to the library. I still worked. And within an hour, it passed away. And I was inspired. I was motivated. I was super hyped again. So if you understand these things as just passing signals, you can begin to disconnect from them. So that's step one. Understanding. Think of it as kind of like background music in the cafe. You don't have to give it importance. The problem is a cloud passes by, for example, I failed last time. And we get pulled into the cloud. Oh yeah, I failed last time. How does Bob do so well? I'm going to fail again. I'm not going to get into my dream university. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. We get pulled into this story that our survival mechanism is telling us. Don't get pulled into the story. Understand that it's just a signal. You don't have to listen to it. So the solution is not to cut off our thoughts. It's not about getting rid of my thoughts. Like Tushar the other day, who's my mentor, he's been meditating for 11 years. So he's basically a monk. Not really, but he's been meditating for a long time, 2 hours a day for like 11 years. So I asked him, okay, does that mean you don't think anymore? Does that mean you stop thinking? And he told me that he still thinks. He still gets thoughts, but he doesn't get pulled into them as much. For example, he still gets stressed. Things in his life are going to make him stressed, but he disconnects from the stress much more easily. So it's not that he doesn't have any thoughts. It's that he gives them less importance. He just sees the thoughts as these signals in his mind. So it's not that you're going to stop thinking or something. It's that you just give them less importance and you understand that these thoughts say nothing about reality. They're just this old survival mechanism inside of me trying to protect me. It's just trying to protect me. The problem is most advice out there has you fighting against this survival mechanism. For example, when the survival mechanism tells you, oh, I don't feel like studying today, I want to go sleep, the advice out there will tell you like, no, you have to push against it. You have to, push through with anger. Like a lot of masculinity advice out there tells you to push through this survival mechanism that your body is giving you. And sure, it'll work at first. Maybe, screw what you feel, study anyway. It might work for a while. But the problem is when you push against your survival mechanism, you're using willpower. And eventually you're going to burn out. This is why students burn out, because they're constantly fighting against their survival mechanism. It's like you're in a car and the brake is on. You push harder and harder and harder on the pedal, and eventually you're going to burn out. You're going to stop. What you need to do is you need to release the brake. Don't fight against it. Release the brake. So this is why students burn out, because me, right, I'm developing more and more in this area. So I basically don't burn out anymore. Like it's 9:30 p.m. right now and I've been working pretty much all day and I'm still feeling really energized because I'm not fighting against my own survival mechanism. Sure, like I said yesterday, the survival mechanism activated and I felt stressed and I was getting all these overthinking thoughts, but I understood them as just signals they were going to pass anyway. So yeah, like the advice out there, when it tells you to fight against your survival mechanism, all you're doing is suppressing it. Like I'm not sure if this is related here, Newton's third law of motion. Whenever you put a force against an object, it puts an equal and opposite force onto you. So when you put this force against your survival mechanism and you suppress it, you push it down, eventually it explodes back up. This is why sometimes, by the way, I'm not sure if that law of motion applies here. That was just kind of an analogy. But basically, that's why you will go into these cycles of studying hard, being motivated, being hyped, and then falling into these ruts because you're using this limited power. But when you actually get rid of your survival response, studying becomes enjoyable. It becomes effortless. That's the default state of your mind. I'll give you one more example here of why studying can be boring, why we hate studying. It's because we can't tolerate boredom. So a huge resistance students feel is the resistance of boredom. So what exactly is boredom? Boredom is an emotion that your body gives you. And it's the emotion of basically wanting novelty. Whenever you feel bored, it's your body telling you, I want novelty, I want stimulation. But remember, it's just a signal. You don't have to listen to it. So this is what happens with students. They can't even tolerate boredom. They get a little bit bored, they want stimulation, they go onto their phone. But if you can tolerate boredom, this is a superpower. Let me give you an example. So last week I was away on this 10-day meditation retreat. It's called Vipassana. Basically, it's 12 hours a day from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m. meditating for 10 days, no technology, no speaking. So there was this one day, I think day 7, I'm sitting out on the field, enjoying the sun. It's a recess period. I've just had my lunch and I'm enjoying the sun. And out of nowhere, my mind just goes completely quiet. And I experienced the most peaceful moment I've ever experienced in my entire life. Literally every single ant walking by on the grass looked so interesting. I could see every single blade of grass. The light was shining through the trees. It looked so beautiful. I was just so peaceful. Everything was so amazing. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. But then 20 minutes later, as if my mind was like, oh no more enjoying. This is not good. Suddenly I got hit with this massive wave of boredom. And like the biggest boredom I've ever felt in my entire life. I was thinking like, oh, what's the point of life? Life is just so much suffering. What's the point of doing anything? Why exercise? Why work? Why meditate? Why do anything? What's the point of this existence? I literally felt so bored, like nothing was gonna make me enjoy anything. I was just feeling so bored. But in that moment, I understood, okay, this is just a passing signal. I'm just getting hit with this wave of boredom, but like all other emotions, it's gonna pass. And so I understood that. I didn't give my mind any importance when it was yapping on about how bored we are. And yeah, a little bit of time passed and I was back to how I was before. Not that super peaceful state, but I was just back to a different state. Because our mind is just constantly changing. It's constantly in change. So when I understood that boredom was gonna change, I didn't let it affect me. I didn't let it pull me into that negativity. So if you have that ability of when you're bored in studying, not to get pulled to that story of, oh, we're so bored, this sucks, I'm so bored. That is a superpower because most students, as soon as they feel a little bit of boredom, they literally stand up and they go scroll on their phone or something. They go seek stimulation. If you have this ability to tolerate boredom and not constantly seek stimulation, I promise you, this is probably one of the most valuable skills you can develop in this entire century because most people cannot do this. Most people cannot resist constantly needing to do something. If you can resist that, trust me, you will focus better than everyone else. You will get business ideas. You will literally achieve more success than everyone else. It's literally a superpower and it's really, really rare. So yeah, the reason we hate anything is simply because our mind is putting up resistance. We're in this survival mode and it's projecting into the past and the future. Oh, this is so boring. What's the point of my life? Life has always been suffering, blah, blah, blah. Our mind is just going into the past and the future. That was the situation with me and boredom. So we need to access flow state, to access enjoyment. We need to be present. We need to be in the moment. So we need to essentially disconnect from this survival mechanism. We need to begin to retrain our minds that studying is safe. Because when I study, I don't need to hype myself up. I don't need positive thinking. I don't need to flood my mind with positive thinking. My mind is balanced. I just turn up and I just do it. Kind of like, how you have to go to the toilet. I just do it. I don't need to hype myself up. I don't need to, watch a motivational video to do it. I'm always just constantly, naturally motivated, constantly balanced. I honestly barely watch content these days on YouTube because I don't need that kind of motivation. I don't need that kind of hype. I'm able to do it to myself. And like I said, I wasn't always like this. For most of my life, I needed that hype. I needed that motivation. I would fall into these up and down periods. But if you can master your mind, you can keep a balanced mind in all situations. Studying becomes enjoyable. It becomes effortless. So that's it. And if you want my personal help and my mentor Tushar's personal help to help you make studying effortless, you can literally give us your situation and we will literally help you what's holding you back right now. Like I said, a bunch of students have been getting results. Within 2 weeks, studying will become much more effortless for you. So please stop wasting time stuck in this procrastination cycle of being stuck in your survival mechanism. Finally free yourself from this survival response so you can finally make studying effortless. And it's very difficult to do alone. So if you want help, please click the link below. The offer is not always going to be there. The offer is not always going to be there. It's very, very cheap right now, but we are going to have to increase it when more students come. So join now. But apart from that, see you later.